let's talk some NFL with Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network. It is DJ Football. He is Daniel Jeremiah. I'm Ryan Brown. Welcome in, DJ. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Ryan. How you doing, man?
Man, we're doing awesome. Crazy week one that ended with sad, crazy fashion. We'll talk about all of that. Presented by mybookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up there at mybookie.ag. Code next round to get that sign-on bonus. It is yours and yours forever when you win. Just sign right up there at mybookie.ag and code next round. We start with how week one finished. Monday Night Football was so anticipated. The debut of Aaron Rodgers in a Jets uniform playing maybe the AFC favorite in the Buffalo Bills. And 4 plays in, it is all over with. Listen, I'm a lifelong Dolphins fan. You know that, DJ. Yeah. My heart rarely breaks for the Jets. It breaks for the Jets and the Jets fans. That's just awful.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it 2 ways, right? You feel terrible, for the Jets and obviously for Aaron, because everything, all the hype, all the buildup, and they did put a lot into it. The Jets spent the whole offseason kind of building this thing around him in terms of who they hired as coaches, as well as how they built up the roster to cater towards Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron, by all accounts, and we saw it on, with Hard Knocks, like he was very invested for some of the questions about his commitment over the last couple of years and how much he really wanted to do this. He put it all in. He put in all the work on this. So you feel bad for them on one hand. On the other hand, Ryan, I feel like, gosh, just like as fans, whether or not you're a fan of the Jets or the Dolphins or the Chargers, whoever, like we got robbed of like all these primetime, big time matchups we were getting ready to see. Because if you haven't looked at the Jets schedule, not only are they playing a lot of primetime games, they had a lot of primetime opponents, like marquee matchups, and he was going to be the headliner, and then now we're not going to get it.
I mean, just in the Jets division, I mean, you were going to have Tua, who was phenomenal week one, Tua versus Aaron Rodgers, Mac Jones, who was struggling early but ended up being pretty good against Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, we saw Josh Allen against Aaron Rodgers. It was just going to be so many good quarterback matchups in that one division. And now you're robbed of that. I mean, as a fan of a team in that division, I'm kind of glad the Dolphins don't have to run the gauntlet, but that was going to be a fun division this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And I still think I wouldn't punt on the Jets yet because I think there's always talk about formulas and like, do you have a way, like, how do you get to the winner's circle? What's your winning formula? And you just go back to last year, as bad as it ended and as bad as Zach Wilson looked at the end of the year last year, and the Jets just completely nosedived. When they had Breece Hall healthy, when they had Elijah Vera Tucker healthy, and when really they weren't relying on Zach Wilson to do anything, they were winning games. They were off to a really hot start. And now you look and you're like, okay, well, you've got Breece Hall, who had 147 total yards. He played 17 plays in the game.
Yeah,
when everybody watching at home, everybody in the stadium and on both sidelines knew what was coming, and they were still able to run the football. So they had that going. Now you add Dalvin Cook into the mix. You have Becton and Vera Tucker up front, which in the run game, they were mauling people and moving people. And then all of a sudden now you look at I think Aaron Rodgers can play a key role for them, even though he's out, because if you looked at Zach Wilson's 2 biggest questions last year, really, Ryan, throughout his career, it's decision-making and confidence. Struggles in both areas. And Aaron can help in both those areas. When the 4-time MVP tells you you're good enough, some guys you believe it. So that can help a little bit there, and then just another set of eyes to help them. So I wouldn't punt on the season for them just yet. They have a formula, but man, they can't afford to lose anybody else because it's a narrow margin.
Yeah, 2 things. I mean, number one, he is still throwing to Allen Lazard. Now, he's not going to have the same chemistry with Lazard that Aaron Rodgers is going to have, obviously. But then you also saw Garrett Wilson. For those that had not seen any Garrett Wilson, that was an incredible touchdown catch. So he's got legitimate receivers to throw to. And Robert Saleh is always going to give you a solid defense. And you saw that last night. They created 4 turnovers against Buffalo.
Yeah, they did. And we've seen some teams, I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, Purdy has played well, but that team is not quarterback dependent in San Francisco. Yeah. They are defensive driven. They are McCaffrey driven, and they ask Purdy to make a few plays that he needs to make. It's the same formula that the Jets are going to have to use. But I mean, last year, I think their defense, gave up 17 points, 18 points a game, something like that. Like, you're not asking them to score 30 points. Like, if you can get out there and get us, 18 to 20 points a game, just don't turn the ball over. You'll have a chance to win games. And, I was watching the broadcast. I felt like, gosh, they're just crushing him. You feel bad for him all over again. I'm like, I want to watch the tape and see what it looks like. And there's a throw. It's a 3rd and 5. It's a conversion for them. He hits Garrett Wilson on a corner route. So he's running a corner route. It's underthrown and on his back shoulder. So Wilson goes to the ground and catches it. So as you're watching it on TV, you're like, oh, another, crappy Zach Wilson throw, and he's bailed out by Garrett Wilson. Then you watch the tape this morning, and I see you've got the corner, Tre'Davious White, who's sinking underneath the route. So if he throws that thing on the upfield shoulder, it's going to get intercepted. I'm like, oh my gosh, Zach Wilson actually threw him away from trouble.
Right.
It was actually a really nice throw and a really nice conversion. He made, weren't a lot, but he made some few key plays when they needed it. I was thinking, I'm waiting for somebody in the New York media to try and do the Trey Turner thing and do like we're going to give him a standing ovation. Like, we've been so hard on this guy and he hasn't played well. Maybe we just need to love him up a little bit. I don't know if they'll do that, but hey, if Philadelphia can do it, maybe there's hope for New York.
Hey, so when Buffalo turns it over 4 times, and it looked like Josh Allen was just being careless with a football.
Yeah.
And watching the film, was it a Robert Saleh scheme that Allen didn't recognize? Was he just being careless with a football? Because the first 2 picks just looked like he was throwing it up for grabs, basically.
Yeah, this is my kind of theory on it after watching it, and I thought it when we saw it live, which is he got hit a bunch, they pressured him a bunch, and sometimes you get a feeling of, okay, that's like this rush coming at you. You survive the maze. Like, somehow I've avoided this thing. I've bought some extra time. Surely there's some big payout for me having survived this rush that I just got around. I've bought all this extra time. Somebody's got to be wide open down the field. I mean, look at it. Look at this Houdini act that I just pulled off. But the thing is, it's not like they're rushing 6, 7 guys and then you somehow eluded it and now they're naked in the back end and they're hitting you with 4 guys. So even though you've bought time, even though you survived that and scrambled around, you don't have that deep shot, and he's got to get that out of his head. He's, this is not, you're not at Wyoming playing with inferior players. You have, with the quarterback situation, you have the advantage in this game. I was probably a Nick Saban line. I don't remember who said it, but it's a million years old. Like, any drive that ends in a kick is a good drive.
Yep.
Just don't turn it over.
Yeah. So that was the way the week ended. Probably the best game of the weekend was the one that pitted our friendships against one another. You are the Chargers analyst on radio. I'm a lifelong Dolphins fan. They played in LA, and the game did not disappoint at all, just up and down the field. I texted you during the game, these offenses are going to be a problem. And look, it's a week 1, probably a knee jerk. I'm not certain I didn't watch the 2 best offenses in the NFL Sunday.
Yeah, and I think what was incredible about it was they did it so differently. Yeah. And look, I call the game for the Chargers. I call their game, so I'm around those guys. I know them really well. But I got to know Tua a little bit going through the draft process. I knew him, going back and watching him at the Elite 11, many, many years ago and getting a chance to visit with him. He's one of my favorite people in the league. So to see him kind of have that moment out there where, I mean, he played flawless. He was unbelievable. And the pace with which he was operating, how quick he was. It was the same thing that got me excited. I know a lot of people excited about him coming into the NFL was this is like some Drew Brees qualities that it possesses in terms of he's quick feet, he's got a quick mind, he's got a quick release. Everything happens fast. And they found some things with motion where they were able to motion, and every time they motioned and got to a trip set, the Chargers would back off. So he was getting free access all over the place. And the clip's been shared a million times with Tyreek Hill on that kind of out motion where it looks like the Arena League. I mean, he's on a dead sprint and then he turns it up. I mean, you got no shot. But they just attacked. And, there was some criticism on the Chargers pass rush. I posted some plays on social media because I'm like, you guys are killing Bosa and Mack because they can't get pressure. They're literally unblocked on 3 or 4 of them, and the ball's gone so fast you can't get home.
Yeah.
So it was a masterful game plan. It was masterful execution on the Dolphins side of things. And then on the Chargers, from their offensive standpoint, they would get an 8-yard run on first down. So early in the game, I think, okay, well, they're going to probably take a shot. It's 2nd 2. This is a great time to take a shot. Vic's going to have to drop a safety down, and they just gashed him for 8 yards, and they get up the snap. And I'm like, nope, those safeties are still in the parking lot. And Vic is going to say, if you just want to keep running it, you can run it, but we are not going to let this thing sail over our head. And I thought Kellen Moore, I thought he called a masterful game. I mean, they put 34 points up. They rushed for over 200 yards. He stayed patient. He was like, hey, if they're going to give us this, we're just going to continue to take it. And, you scored 34 points, you should win a football game. I thought both offenses were excellent. And I thought defensively, Vic on the last drive, when you had to have a stop, really was the 3rd down that they held the Chargers to a field goal on their, one of their second to last drive was huge, where I believe they brought 6. And then on the last possession that the Chargers had, they get a first down on the first play. And then Vic, sent pressure, 6-man pressure. Chargers didn't pick it up. You get a intentional grounding, and then he gets 2 more sacks. So the gotta have it possessions, the third down in that last one, I thought that was the game. The Dolphins, they won the game right there.
Yeah, Mike McDaniel. I'll listen. I watch every game,
Yeah.
and there's sometimes it can be frustrating. He was on his game in the game in LA. There was a 4th and 7 where he goes for it almost. I mean, he really didn't even think twice about it. Ball's out near midfield. It's points for the Chargers if he doesn't pick it up. Durham Smythe is open, and they moved the change there. He had rarely in the NFL can you do this. He drew up a touchdown play for Tua in the third, where Durham Smythe is wide open in the front of the end zone and River Cracraft's wide open at the back. He had 2 guys wide open.
Yeah.
Durham Smythe almost knocked it down until he realized that Tua was throwing to Cracraft. I mean, you got to give Mike McDaniel credit. That was a heck of a game plan.
Yeah, he was awesome. That play you're talking about down there on the touchdown. It's you got I was at the back or the tight end in the flat. So you've got kind of play action and someone in the flat. So everybody in the league, you're going to have a flooded concept. You're going to have a flat. You're going to have a corner, and you maybe have somebody else, but it's all going to be this half. So as soon as you see that flat route, all of a sudden they get two wideouts coming on the backside, and I'm like, it was a dealer's choice. I mean, whoever you want, both of them are wide open. So he ends up getting a touchdown. But I got to tell you what he did in this game, which was hilarious to me. And I'm up there in the booth, and if you've been to SoFi, the board is unbelievable. Everybody's the Oculus board they have. It's incredible. And so when they have a challenge, they'll put both coaches on the screen. So you see him and you see Brandon Staley. And Brandon Staley, he's not looking at a camera or anything. He's just walking around. He's got his headset on, maybe, arms folded. Well, Mike McDaniel sees it. He's looking at it. He sees himself up there. So he knows he's on camera. So the first one was Brandon Staley had challenged it, that he was out of bounds, I believe, and he was correct. And you see him, he's looking right into the camera. And he goes, "Good challenge, Brandon Staley. Good challenge." So he's like, everybody in the whole stadium, if you can just read his lips, it's hilarious. But that was the first one, which was semi-funny. The one that was hilarious to me was there was like I don't know if it was a timeout or there was a delay or something, but they're zoomed in on his face. And you see him glance up at the scoreboard and he sees it. And he pulls his microphone from his headset down, Ryan, and he goes, "Run the ball the next 5 plays. Run the ball the next 5 plays." And I'm like, this is hilarious. I mean, of course, they're chucking it all over the lot. Like it was beautiful.
That's so good. He may not call 5 straight runs all season.
But he had this little sly smirk on his face. Like, is there, if it was the Patriots, it would have made more sense because they had somebody monitoring the scoreboard to try and read lips and see what he was doing.
DJ Football presented each week by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign on at MyBookie.ag. Get that sign-on bonus. And for a limited time, a chip you can play in the MyBookie casino. You win with that bonus one time. It is yours and yours forever. MyBookie.ag, code next round. MyBookie.ag, code next round when you sign on there and get that sign-on bonus. You could sign up for free, but you get the bonus with code next round. Also, don't forget Lance'sLock.com. Another winning football weekend, including capping it off with the Jets on Monday Night Football. Surprise winner without Aaron Rodgers. He had it from the beginning. Lance'sLock.com. Daily, weekly, monthly, full season packages right there at Lance'sLock.com. All right, let's get the biggest overreaction. What do you think is the biggest overreaction to the first week of this season in the NFL?
Well, I would say the 2 biggest ones would be, we all assume the Giants will just never get a first down. Like they must be the worst team of all time.
They look pretty bad.
It was bad.
Yeah.
But you're going to have clunkers along the way. We've seen this happen in years past. They're not as bad as they look. Now, the Cowboys defense, on the other hand, is legit. It's a special group who are very fast. And there are concerns with that Giants offensive line. It was a debacle for the Giants, but I don't think they're as awful as that looked. So that'd be the first one. And you can, consider the opponent you're playing, how they played, all those things. That's the first one. The second one is, and I'll fall on the sword on this one. I thought the Pittsburgh Steelers I thought they'd win the game. I sure as heck thought it would be a fair fight. They got clobbered by the 49ers. So those to me are some of them. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers are as bad as they looked. It's kind of like I don't think the Chargers and Dolphins defenses are as terrible as they look on paper after these games. You have to take into account first week who you're playing, what their strength is, and say, okay, that that wasn't good. It wasn't good, but let's let the season breathe a little bit before we get the the absolute declarative statements.
Did we overreact on the first Thursday night to every Chiefs pass catcher not named Travis Kelce? They did not look good, but
No.
do we overreact to say that offense might be a little bit broken right now?
I'm just not going to worry about them. Literally, if they catch, if they catch 3 of those drop balls, and he still had 3 or 4 more, even if they just caught 2 or 3 more of those, it changes the whole complexion of that game. They're getting open. That Patrick is Patrick. They didn't have Kelce. I mean, I don't know. I don't devote a lot of time and brain space to worrying about Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. They'll be fine.
Do we overreact to Tampa winning on the road and Baker Mayfield playing as well as he did? It's a team that a lot of people thought would be playing for the first overall pick.
Yeah.
And there they go and win at Minnesota, a team that won their division last year.
Yeah, I think that one give Tampa credit. I did not think they would be able to pull that off, and it was not the cleanest game, but they were physical. They were physical on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Minnesota couldn't run the ball a lick. So to me, that was kind of the game there. You make Kirk Cousins a little bit one-dimensional, and they took the ball away and turned him over. So better than I anticipated. Again, I'm not going to get carried away with that one. But it's a good start for them, and I don't think they belonged in the first overall pick discussion. I don't think anybody thought they were going to go to the playoffs or win the Super Bowl by any stretch. But I thought they were a 7-8 win type team.
Yeah.
They'd still have too many good players to have a horrible year.
But then there's Arizona, who probably does belong in that conversation.
Yeah.
And they're right in the game at Washington. They almost won their week 1 game at the Commanders.
Yeah, and they got a lot of pressure. So their front actually moving some guys around with Jonathan Gannon on that defensive side of the ball. I know he was kind of a punching bag for some of the stuff that was out there circulating on social media from their I think it was their in-house show or whatever. But he knows defense. He understands defense. They played hard. It was definitely a more competitive group than I anticipated. But you challenge a lot of guys like that, Ryan. Like you don't. These guys are grown men, and you kind of get embarrassed when people like me are saying, "This team, I don't know how are they going to win a game?"
Yeah.
And they go out there and played really, really competitively. And I think obviously it was a cheap shot, but man, the hit early in that game on Sam Howell was like, "Oh gosh, okay, I guess these guys there's a little aggression out here."
Are we going to overreact, do you think, to Jordan Love throwing 3 touchdown passes? There had been so much speculation about what he would or wouldn't do replacing Aaron Rodgers. And all he does is play a divisional opponent in the first week and throw 3 touchdown passes, no picks, 245 pass yards. He looked really good.
Yeah, no, and it wasn't perfect. There's throws he missed. I mean, even on some of them, which were completions, including the big home run ball to Musgrave, should have been a touchdown if he kind of gets it out there. He doesn't have to stumble to catch it. But I thought the biggest thing for me, he looked like the game was slow for him. He was climbing up in the pocket. He looked comfortable. He didn't look, out of place at all. And you saw, okay, they've got a good offensive line. Even though they're missing some weapons on the outside, I don't think the Bears defense is going to invoke any memories of the 85 group by any stretch. But he was, to me, the basic test was, does it look like it's slowed down from him? Does he look comfortable? And does he trust what he's seeing? And I thought he did. There's probably still 5 or 6 throws he'd like to have back where he just misfired. But no, that's a good start for him.
Do we overreact to the fact that Joe Burrow became the richest quarterback in the history of the game and threw for less than 100 yards in week 1? It was crappy weather. It's a division road game. I mean, there are a lot of factors there. I get it. It was just surprising to see.
I got a text from a GM maybe 3 or 4 days before the weekend, and we were just kind of going over different games and kind of what your thoughts were on things. And he said my kind of bold prediction or whatever. So I think Cleveland's going to beat the tar out of Cincinnati.
Wow.
And I said, really? He goes, yeah, they won't be able to block them. And I think it was a combination of the personnel that they have, obviously with Myles Garrett, and there's nobody like him. He's a one of one. But Jim Schwartz's defense was created for Myles Garrett. I mean, that's what he does. It's an attack front. It's giving him width along the front, getting a wide 9+ where they'll let him, and then he's going to find matchups. And you saw him with him crossing over and pretending like he's playing basketball when he's rushing inside. You're going to see the best version of Myles Garrett with Jim Schwartz. And so you add that with the mismatch up front with the offensive line, which still isn't great in Cincinnati, and then just the rust with Joe. I mean, he hadn't played, he hadn't practiced, and he looked like it.
I thought it was an offseason overreaction to just say you're going to drop Sean Payton into Denver. and he's going to resurrect Russell Wilson's five-year ago quarterback body. It's going to be old Russell Wilson again. It looked like through 1 week, the same Russell Wilson and the same offense that Sean Payton killed Nathaniel Hackett for running last year. It looked like not much had changed. Am I overreacting to just 1 week of that now?
It just looked like you're trying to coach Drew Brees, and this isn't Drew Brees. You know, death by a million paper cuts offense is not who Russell Wilson is or how he plays or how they're going to be able to win games. I just don't see him scoring points playing like this. So, I mean, Russell has been a run game, which that's great. Commit to the run game, but then pay that run game off with explosives. He just didn't push the ball down the field at all. So I don't know. Sean Payton's, he's forgotten more football than I'll ever know. So I'll see how he adjusts and figures this thing out. I'm sure he'll have some answers, but looking at what we looked at week 1, that doesn't seem like it's a great fit or a winning formula.
I also, and you and I discussed this last week, I felt like Seattle caught lightning in a bottle with Geno Smith last year. Yeah. Now, I know they had some injuries in that game against the Rams, but the Rams handled that game pretty well, and Geno Smith did not play well. 12 pass yards. It was not a great Geno Smith game. And to me, that was the concern for the Seahawks, is that you just caught the career year of Geno Smith last year.
I think it's fair. I don't think that's an overreaction to say that. I think that's a legit question. So, let's let it play out. Losing both your tackles, not a great start to the season. Not great. You're with a team that's familiar with you and knows you really well. But I haven't gone through every play of that tape, but just in the clips that I saw and the bit that I saw, peeking at it, it didn't look anything like what we saw last year from Geno Smith.
All right, there's some rookies I want to talk to DJ about. We'll do the rookie report card in just 1 second. A reminder that DJ Football presented each week by mybookie.ag. They've got that cash out at mybookie.ag. You play a 3-leg parlay, get those first 2 in the house. Don't want to sweat out the third one. They'll cash it right out for you. Not a lot of people doing that. The bonus, when you sign on, you can sign up for free at mybookie.ag, but if you use code NEXTROUND, they will give you a bonus. You can use it right away, win, and it is yours and yours forever. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. MyBookie.ag, code NEXTROUND. All right, there were some rookies that were out there playing. Let's start with the good. I thought C.J. Stroud. I'm going to give you his numbers here, DJ. 28 of 44, 242. He did not throw a touchdown, but he also did not throw an interception. I know they only scored 6 points in the 25-6 loss to Baltimore, but I thought there was a lot of positive out of C.J. Stroud in his first start.
Yeah, I'll go back through and pull up my notes on it when I watched him. I thought, to me, his eyes worked well. When you looked at it, I thought he saw the field really well. It was interesting, kind of juxtaposing him with some of the other young guys. Whereas, and we'll get to him in a minute, I thought there were times where, Richardson, you want him to kind of slow down a little bit. Yeah. There's times in this game I wanted Stroud he's got to speed up his clock. He's got to adjust a little bit. I think some of that's, you're coming out of Ohio State. You're playing with better players every single week. You've got a pretty good offensive line in front of you. And preseason speed is different from regular season speed, especially when you're playing the Baltimore Ravens and what they do. So I thought there were times just got to get the ball out a little bit more. So that the 2 critical things would be that. And then I also thought, even though some of them were completions outside of the perimeter, 2 years ago when I watched him going into his final year at Ohio State, I was like, I don't know how much like upper tier, top shelf arm strength he has. It's good, not great. And then I thought last year, man, he got into his legs more. He got his feet in the ground. He was able to get a lot more force. I thought he powered the ball a lot better. I thought his arm was stronger. There were times in this game I thought he kind of reverted back a little bit, where you just got to, get into your lower body and you've got more arm than you showed there. But the poise, which was something you really can't teach, he has. I thought he saw the field really well, did some nice things. So that was not an easy task going up against the Baltimore Ravens, and I thought he hung in there quite well.
Okay, not a rookie, but while we're on that game, the J.K. Dobbins injury is just this guy cannot catch a break, DJ. It's just it's so tough to see that he's going to be out yet again for another year.
Yeah, it's a bummer, man, because he's not only is he a really good player, but as soon as that pick was made, I loved the fit, with him in Baltimore. He's an aggressive, kind of attacking, violent runner. He fits their whole style that they've had for 20 plus years there with the Ravens. And when he's been out there, he's been productive. He just hadn't been able to stay healthy. And here we go, week 1. It feels like every year there's a position that's the injury bug position for the Ravens. A few years ago, it was the running back position, where I think they lost like 3 or 4 of them. And then here we go again, but bummed for him. They'll be fine. They've got other guys. You saw Justice Hill get in the end zone a couple times. They'll be okay, but man, it sucks for him.
Another rookie, you mentioned Anthony Richardson, 24-37 passing, 223, a touchdown and a pick. The bad news is, well, I mean, he had 10 carries for 40 yards and a touchdown. That's not awful, but he led his team in rushing. You can't expect that out of Anthony Richardson. Obviously, you've got the Jonathan Taylor situation there in Indianapolis. How did you grade out Anthony Richardson watching him?
I was impressed. The biggest thing for me, Ryan, is he worked in the middle of the field. A lot of times with young quarterbacks and rookies, there's a lot of mud in there. It's real cloudy, and the picture's not clear. And so a lot of times young quarterbacks, they just want to work on the perimeter. They're going to try and get outside so they can eliminate that part of the field. And he just hung in there. Some of it was RPOs, other times just hanging in there. He hit, I had like 4 seams that they were, comfortable, looked comfortable, put the ball right on the upfield shoulder. It's different with him than those other rookies. I mean, you watch all of them, and I watched them back to back to back. And when you watch the tape, you're like, it is effortless how the ball jumps out of his hand. I mean, he has got a huge arm. Now, there are still 5 to 7 worm burners where you're like, what was that? Like, where's that going? Like he's not going to be ultra efficient. But I thought, you're confident when you're working in the middle of the field as a young quarterback. You trust that you know what you're doing and you know what they're doing defensively. So that was good to see. Obviously, you mentioned him using his legs a little bit. They used a little bit of the screen game. I thought, okay, it was better than I anticipated with him throwing the football. I thought without Jonathan Taylor, especially you're kind of one-dimensional, that's a good, some talent on the other side of the ball over there in Jacksonville. And I thought, you know what, that's a good start. That was a good starting point, game 1 for Anthony Richardson.
In that same game, Calvin Ridley back on the field. I thought he looked faster. I mean, I don't know that there's a reason he would, other than the fact that he was just rested. He hasn't played in a year. He was rested, but he looked faster. How faster or not, he had a tremendous game.
He's rested. He's nice and rested, but he looked fresh. He looked like, to me, just kind of like the same version that I've seen in the past. He's a number 1 guy. He's a number 1 wideout. He's an elite route runner, so much so that other guys in the league study him, like they study a Jefferson as a route runner, like they study Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, these like pure route runners. He's in that group of route runners. Stephon Diggs will be in there as well. So he's going to create tons of separation, and they like to isolate him. They're going to put him over there by himself. And if you're going to go one-on-one over there, it's just literally like routes on air with him and Trevor Lawrence. I mean, he had darn near, I think he had close to 100 yards in like the first quarter and a half. It was just pitch and catch. It was easy. So he's legit. He's a legit number 1. He makes that offense look a lot different. I would like to apologize, by the way. My guy Tank Bigsby got into the end zone. Nice.
Yep.
Fumbled. I want to say average. What was like 1.9 a carry.
When away for that game, it was not great.
Wasn't great.
Yeah, you gave us a couple tanks there, and one of them at least got you a touchdown.
He got a touchdown. What about Tank Dell? What did he give us?
7 carries, 13 yards from Tank Bigsby.
Yeah.
But he did have a touchdown.
We're easing in.
Let's go. There's 2 rookies of the Panthers-Falcons game I want to talk about. I can give you the numbers for Bryce Young, 20 of 38, 146, but and he did throw a touchdown pass, which got tossed up into the stands. And
thanks a lot, huh?
Yeah, I mean, what are you doing? That's my first touchdown pass. But the biggest number there, the 2 interceptions, and something he was so exceptionally good at Alabama was reading defenses and not making those types of mistakes. What did you see from him in the interceptions against the Falcons?
Yep. I'll start right there on the interceptions because it was interesting to watch it. I wrote it down in my notes. 12-25 in the 4th quarter. That was the first time they really tried to get over the top and push the ball vertically. Mm-hmm. So when you're at Alabama and you're playing college football and you have speed all over the field, you have threatened safeties. Safeties do not stand flat-footed. They have been scared to death of the ball sailing over their head. And you could watch in this game early on. He made some nice throws and some nice things, and you could just see Jesse Bates and their safeties. It was like we are at 12 yards. We are flat-footed. You guys aren't even trying to run anybody past us. And it went from a full court basketball game to a half court basketball game. And there are a lot of traffic, a lot of bodies in there. That's going to be the challenge for this team, man. Like if you don't have weapons that can stretch the field at this level against this competition, you're going to have a hard time. And I don't care if you even complete them. You've got to at least attempt them to put that thought in the back of their mind. but they started squatting and driving on everything. They had zero fear of that ball sailing over their heads. So that to me explains away some of the issues on the picks, and you could see it. I mean, it was very obvious. But I thought his eyes worked well. I saw him get through progressions quickly. I thought he was calm in the pocket. There's some throws he'd like to get back for sure. And I think a lot of the incompletions, really, you kind of look at the maybe 5 minutes left in the game. I mean, if they're in a chase mode, in a must pass mode, you would like in a chase mode to have a great play caller, protection, and weapons. They have one of the three. So they're going to be playing in chase mode. It's going to be a rough year, man, because he's got nobody that can uncover, and they're not going to be able to pick up pressure. So his environment, I love the coaching environment, and they're going to eventually get it right. But he does not have what is necessary for him to be successful right now.
On the other side of the ball, the Falcons did not do a lot offensively, even though they won the game by 2 touchdowns. But I want to ask you about Bijan Robinson. His numbers, 10 rushes, 56 yards. He also caught the ball 6 times, 27 yards. That's where his touchdown came. And to me, that's what everything you heard about Bijan Robinson in the offseason was how versatile he was going to be, how they're going to be hand it to him, throw it to him. And that showed up in his 11 touches in week 1.
Ryan, how many drivers do you have in the family?
Well, I've got one off to college and my wife and I. So we've got 3. Yeah.
Okay. So with your daughter, do you remember when you first started and you're like, okay, we're just going to drive around the neighborhood?
Yeah. We're going to hit a church parking lot. Great place to teach a kid to drive. Yeah.
No doubt. They have not taken Bijan Robinson on the freeway yet. This was just a trip around the neighborhood, and it was already fun and exciting. I mean, they didn't even use him like they can use him. I mean, it was just a little glimpse, and like, we don't really need to do more than this. Tyler Algier, go ahead and take us home here, bud. And then they just ran the ball well with him and got out of there, did what they needed to do to win. But they're going to get in games where they're playing against better opponents, and they're going to take Bijan Robinson on the freeway, and we're going to have some fun, man. He is dynamic. He is special. I think he's got a chance to have a 100 game this year at some point in time. Like he is unique with what he can do running and receiving. And again, I just felt like that was just a little glimpse of what he can do.
I mean, when you can score 24 points and Drake London does not touch the football.
Touch the ball.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I mean, I'm not speaking as someone who may or may not have started him in a fantasy league. I mean, I'm not saying that might have been frustrated, maybe cost somebody a game. I don't know.
It was a good pick. So, did we ever come up with a team name? Tanks for everything. Tanks for memories.
Yeah. Thanks for the memories. Thanks for the turnovers last week. Thanks for nothing is what it should have been.
Yeah, thanks for nothing. He is Daniel Jeremiah, NFL Network, at Move the Sticks on Twitter. DJ Football is the show. It is presented each week by MyBookie.ag. Code next round when you sign up at MyBookie.ag. Get that sign-on bonus right away. And you play it and win with it. It is yours and yours forever. You don't have to win it like 5, 6, 7 times. One does it, man. MyBookie.ag, code next round. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. MyBookie.ag, code next round. You touched on this game earlier. The preseason lies to us often. And you I bet you got a lot of examples from week 1. My biggest example from week 1, Pittsburgh's offense looks so good in the preseason. Whew. I mean, at times, Kenny Pickett looked unstoppable. DJ, they almost went the entire first half without a first down. They didn't get the first down until they were running 2 minutes at the end of the first half.
They had 1 yard. They had 1 yard.
Crazy.
But it was interesting to me is that when they got going, they were in hurry up at the end of the half, and they went ding, 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 ding right down the field and scored. So you can learn something from that. Maybe the play design and play setup and game plan wasn't where it needed to be in that one. Kind of baffling. But look, in that one, he got hit. He had a couple throws early on. We had guys fall down, including on an interception. So it was just like, oh, it's going to be one of these types of days. And then he got rattled, which you hope doesn't happen with a young quarterback. In this case, it absolutely did against a really, really good front in San Francisco. But he got real frenetic. His feet got away from him, and then he started missing throws. I mean, they were not easy throws. They were not trying to dink and dunk, and a lot of, talk in the offseason. They're going to be more dynamic. They're going to push the ball down the field. Well, not against the 49ers, you're not. And they tried trying to stretch them down the field, and he misfired several times. So it was, you can't sugarcoat it. It was not good. The offensive line did not play well. Dan Moore, who had been able to hold off Broderick Jones at left tackle, did not play well. I think gave Broderick some snaps late in that game, but I would imagine it's just a matter of time before your first round pick ends up taking over that left tackle spot. But disappointed, with the offensive line, and Pickett didn't play well. But again, as we kind of go full circle on the overreaction, it's a darn good team. It's a really good defense that you went up against there in San Francisco. The argument to me, it's interesting, Ryan, is if you look at it, how we frame the season, all off season, AFC, quarterbacks, offense, explosive. And I think we mentioned it in passing a little bit and talking about Philly and the Niners, and then now obviously what we saw with the Cowboys. The NFC is going to be clearly the more physical conference.
Right.
So you're going to have maybe this is like Big Ten, SEC, like kind of old school type thing where you got maybe a few more athletes here, and maybe it's more, offensive line driven in some of these other ones, but they are, it's two different sports when you watch the AFC and the NFC.
Yeah, and it's so easy to focus on how bad Pittsburgh was, and they were. But to your point, on the other side of the football, San Francisco was impressive in every facet of the game. I mean, there was not one thing I looked at. Purdy looked healthy. He picked right up where he left off. McCaffrey was good. Obviously, you got Kittle. I mean, they just got so many weapons.
Ayuk had 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Brandon Ayuk looked good. And then defensively, I mean, the numbers speak for themselves. They completely shut Pittsburgh down.
Yeah, they physically manhandled them, and that's something that usually you can beat teams like Pittsburgh and Baltimore, but very few teams go into their buildings and physically beat them up, and that's exactly what the Niners did.
All right, let's look ahead to week 2 and some desperate teams. It starts Thursday night. The Vikings desperate to avoid going 0-2, but they have to go to Philadelphia to avoid that. Good luck, Minnesota, going to Philadelphia, who held on and won against the Patriots in week 1.
They scored 7 points against the Eagles last year. Minnesota did. I think Hurts was like 29 of 33 for 300 plus against them when they played last year. And Philadelphia is coming off kind of an ugly win against the Patriots. They didn't play great. They didn't run the ball well. I think you'll see them at home on a short week. There'll be a little more urgency there. I do not feel great about Minnesota going into that environment and trying to find their first win.
Baltimore, coming off the win in Houston, goes to Cincinnati, who is trying to avoid falling in an 0-2 divisional hole on Sunday. That is a early kick on CBS.
Yeah, Lamar didn't look great
No, he
for
didn't.
Baltimore. Did not look great. Now,
Yeah,
Zay
Stroud
Flowers
looked better.
did.
I mean, Stroud looked a little better. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
Zay Flowers is nice. But, I think, look, Joe Burrow's got a lot of pride. That group has a lot of pride. They're not this bad. They're not as bad as they looked last week. I would expect a bounce back from them. But, to me, if Lamar plays, like we've seen him play at the top of his game, then, I think Baltimore would go in there and do it. But to me, I see Cincinnati bouncing back in this one.
Chargers hit the road to Tennessee. Both teams 0-1. Chargers played well in a loss. Tennessee did not play well in a loss. Ryan Tannehill looked old, washed up. I mean, you could use a lot of terms. Threw 3 picks, missed some easy touchdown passes. He did not look good in New Orleans.
Yeah, but this is a different test for the Chargers. Last week they got, they got taken to the woodshed by the most explosive passing attack in the NFL, and now they're going to see a ground and pound team. So last year the question with the Chargers was, man, they can't defend the run, they can't run the ball. So they come out and run the ball well week 1 and defend the run pretty well. But now this is going to be a different type of physicality test up front, as I guarantee that's what they're going to get from the Tennessee Titans. I just don't see. And we'll see, as we get there. I'll do more prep work as we head towards this game, but I just don't see how Tennessee's going to be able to score enough points. I just don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, Vrabel is being asked about, limiting Derrick Henry, because it appeared he did limit Derrick Henry a little bit.
Ajay Spears got loose a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. But at this point in Derrick Henry's career, don't you have to limit him a little bit? I mean, Derrick Henry is not a young guy.
Yeah, I don't know that normal rules apply to that guy, though. I don't think they ever have.
That's true. That's a good point. But, I mean, their quarterback play, I mean, maybe Tannehill's not as bad probably as he looked in New Orleans, but he's not going to be great this year. I don't think anybody expects him to be Tom Brady. And it's obvious that Levis or Malik Willis is not any better, or they would probably be in there playing right now.
Yeah, well, I think we're, let's see. If it looks like this over the next 3 or 4 weeks, we're going to see somebody else. You might as well get him out there and start the future now.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. When you look at the Lions, winners in Kansas City, they come back home and they play host to the Seahawks. We talked about Geno Smith's troubles. We also talked about the fact that, maybe it was an overreaction to the Chiefs, but Lions in week 1 go to Kansas City and get the win. Their fans celebrated like they just won the Super Bowl. It was a sexy offseason pick, and they backed it up in week 1.
Yeah, and the other side of this thing is you look at the injuries with Seattle, and then you look at Detroit getting the benefit of the rest. If you're going to play on a Thursday night, it's a godsend to be the choice to play in the opener because you get full prep for the game, and then you get the rest after the game. It's like it's a great spot to be in. So I imagine the Lions will be ready to go in that one, and I think the line of scrimmage they have a chance to do some work.
The Sunday night game, Dolphins-Patriots. Patriots desperate is probably an overstatement. But there again, you can start 0-2 and you're climbing out of a hole the rest of the year. You know the stats on teams that start 0-3 as it relates to making the playoffs. Miami coming off the hot performance, but they've got to go to New England. Mac Jones started rough in that game. I think he had
the weather was terrible.
Yeah, it was. It was. I think Mac had 54 pass attempts, though, and I don't think there's any scenario that you want him throwing the ball 54 times.
No, that's not going to work. I would imagine they get away from that this week, especially when they watch the tape and see what the Chargers did on the ground. So I would imagine you'll see a little different approach in that one. But again, I go back to the same thing with the Patriots, and I'm like, if the game gets up in points, I just don't. Did they have any kind of firepower if the game goes there in that direction? If it's 28 plus, I don't see them getting there.
Yeah. I mean, every time he would run the ball, I thought that MVP conversation we had last week, and you mentioned Austin Eckler. Yeah. And every time he was ripping off like 30 and 40-yard runs, I'm like, come DJ, I can't stand it.
Yeah, and then you turned over and you watched Tank Bigsby, and you're like, no, it was a blind squirrel. Guess. That's a blind squirrel, lucky guess.
There are 2 Monday night games. Saints, Panthers is a little bit ugly, but I am fascinated by that Browns-Steelers game. We talked about how bad the Steelers were.
Yeah.
Again, a divisional game. The Browns, a surprise in the way they played. Then you go to Pittsburgh. Again, desperate in week 2 is an overstatement, but there's probably just a little element of desperation in Pittsburgh to prove that was not them in week 1.
Well, they might have lost to the most physical team in the league in San Francisco. Cleveland's in the top 5 in terms of physical teams. So whatever their problems were last week in that regard, in terms of stopping the run, in terms of protecting their quarterback, you better figure it out, fix it quick, because this is not a team you want to see if those issues show up again.
Yeah, absolutely. Get to see if Kenny Pickett is who the critics have always said about him, or if he is a legitimate NFL quarterback. I think he's one of those guys. The book is still open on Pickett. I don't know that we really know one way or the other. If you wanted to tear him apart, Sunday was your opportunity to do that, though.
Yeah, no question. And they believe in him. I was there at training camp, inside that organization, coaching staff, personnel-wise, talking to other players. There's a lot of confidence and a lot of belief, but you started to see some cracks there. I don't know, it was Deontay Johnson and George Pickens kind of, I wouldn't say showing him up, but, there's a ball that's behind him, and they're kind of look over, and they're like, you start seeing those little cracks. You don't want this to continue down that road.
Yeah, I don't know if it showed up on the 22s, the high 22s or the end zones or whatever. I mean, I'm sure it did on the end zone film if you've watched it, but he's got a touchdown to Freiermuth. It's as easy a touchdown pass as an NFL quarterback's going to have, and he throws it behind him. I mean, there's not even a safety. He doesn't have to throw it away from
the middle. Yeah, he was on the left side and then opens up in the middle. It's on his back hip. No chance.
It's as easy a touchdown pass as you get in the NFL, and that's just
he got rattled. He was definitely rattled and frazzled in that one.
Yeah, there's no doubt. All right, week 2 on the way. You can play it right there at mybookie.ag. Mybookie.ag, code next round. And get signed up there. It is free to sign up. You get the sign-on bonus with code next round. You can use it and use it right away. If you win, it is yours and yours forever. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with mybookie.ag, code next round. And don't forget, get your plays there at lanceslock.com. Lanceslock.com coming off another winning weekend in football, including the Jets on Monday night. And he'll do it again this weekend. Daily packages, weekly packages, monthly packages, and full season packages right there at lanceslock.com. Lanceslock.com and mybookie.ag, code next round. All right, enjoy Nashville. Be careful on Lower Broadway. Good music. It can get a little bit like Bourbon Street, though.
I got to go easy on the barbecue, man. You can't call a game with all that stuff just rustling around your gut. It's no good.
So good. It is the best. Jack's Barbecue on Broadway. It looks like a tourist trap, an underrated barbecue joint right there on Broadway.
Over Martin's?
No, Martin's is good. But here in Birmingham, we've got a Martin's, so I get to eat Martin's in Birmingham.
Yeah.
I like to go to Jack's. Martin's is a great choice, though.
Good spots.
Yeah.
All right, I'm on it. I'm on it. I'm off that take. I'm gonna have it and just see how it goes.
Yeah, and by the way, tough loss for Appalachian State. You guys, I mean, you've done everything but beat North Carolina 2 straight years.
2 straight years. This is like Tennessee couldn't finish it several years ago. Had Penn State couldn't, down to the end. Miami, I think, was an overtime game. Now these 2 games with Carolina. Like the Michigan, the North Carolina, South Carolina wins, over the years.
Texas A&M.
Texas A&M last year. That's great, but man, it could be so much more.
Yeah,
it's
you want
close,
that in-state win. You want that in-state against North Carolina.
I will say this. I will say this. This is not a hot take. I went from watching the second half of the App State Carolina game to watching the Bama game. And without sounding offensive, I would take the App State quarterback over the Alabama quarterback. And the App State quarterback's a JC kid making his first start in a Power 5 game.
Yeah. Listen, I live here in Birmingham. There are some people to be willing to make that trade right now, sight unseen. So I don't think you're alone in that opinion.
I better be quiet. Shoot NIL. I might be shipping him there. I got to be careful.
That's right. Maybe their next season. All right. He is Daniel Jeremiah. Go follow him at Move the Sticks and see him on the NFL Network. Thanks, DJ. Have a great week.
See you, buddy.